Alright, so here goes nothing. I'll try to aim the camera and get this stuff in the jar without making a mess. So when you're filling the jars up, you want to fill them to about a 1/4 inch below the top rim of the jar. Not below the funnel here, but you can see the rim of the jar there. That's your headspace. Your fruits, jellies, that kind of thing. You want to keep a 1/4 inch of headspace. When you're canning things like chicken, beef, that kind of stuff, you want to keep 1 inch of headroom. You need that headroom in, and that's what helps you get your vacuum seal. Alright, that wasn't too messy. And once you have one jar done, bring your next jar over. Put this one out of the way. And continue to fill up. Alright, I'm going to knock out the rest of those jars real quick and I'll be back. Alright, so I got my jars filled up here and I ended up with 1/2 jar. Anytime you end up with a 1/2 jar, 1/4 jar, 3/4 full jar, whatever, if it's not a completely full jar filled up all the way so that you can can it properly, that's the jar you don't process. You can put a lid on it, leave it on the counter to cool, and that'll be the jar that you can put in the fridge and you and the family can enjoy that the next day. But these other jars that you're going to be processing, you can take a damp cloth or paper towel, make sure there's nothing stuck on the rim. Keep that way you get a nice clean seal. You will also want to make sure that you don't have any big air bubbles stuck on the side of the jars down below here. Usually I just give it a little tap, jams. The air bubbles seem to work the way out. But if you have any that are giving you a hard time, you take a little wooden spoon or a plastic spoon and just kind of run it in around the jar. Work those air bubbles right out. I think this, especially when you are canning any meats, chicken, that kind of stuff, you definitely want to get in there and break up any air bubbles. Alright, so I am going to put my lids on. And I'll grab a couple of rings. And I'm going to try to do this somewhat one-handed. Yeah, let's see how that's going to work out. Alright, good, I got it started. There we go, got it started. Get down there, you. Alright, so you go till the ring is tight, and I'm going to put you down for a minute. You go till the ring is tight, then grab it and give it a little, maybe a little 1/4 turn, just to make sure it's snug. You don't want to over tighten them. You don't have to crank them down like it's the last job in the world that you don't want anyone to open it. So you snug them up nice. Then you're ready to go in the canner. Water's been boiling for quite a while now, so we should be good to go. Now my water level is a little low, so I am going to add some more hot water to that. Then I'll bring it back up to a boil. And again, make sure you have 1 to 2 inches of water above the cans, above the jars. Bring it up to a boil. And the processing times on the pint jars this size, I'll go 15 minutes. But the half pints, the 8-ounce jars, I'll do for 10 minutes. But make sure you process them the whole time. Once the water is boiling again, if you have to add water, bring it back up to boil. Once you're boiling, go ahead and put your lid on, process it for the 15 minutes. Alright, so I get the top on. I am using the Pressure canner to double as my water bath canner. Just don't lock the lid, just set the lid on top of it and process it for 15 minutes. You're not watching any gauge or anything like that. And while that's processing and that little bit of leftover in the pan is cooled, yeah, you can see it thickening up already. Look at that. Oh yeah, you know Daddy's gonna enjoy the leftovers, that's for sure. I don't know why everyone doesn't do this. Alright guys, I'll be back. Alright, so those bad boys are boiling again. I'm going to give them 15 minutes to process, so at 7:28 will be coming out. The leftover lids that I had, while I did heat them up and kept them in the bowl ready for use, but I didn't have to use quite as many jars as I thought. Leave them all to dry for a little bit, then you can go ahead and put them away and use them the next time. If you have a plastic lid, go ahead and throw a little plastic lid on top of your extra strawberry preserves, the ones you're going to put in the fridge later on. Don't put them in the fridge while they're hot. Let them cool off out here for a few hours. You let them cool right beside the jars that you canned up. Let them cool off for a good 8 to 12 hours. And then you'll be good to go ahead and put those away with the rest of the preps. Alright, man, while those other jars are still processing, I just wanted to give you a quick little idea of what to look for on these lids to make sure you have a proper seal. Okay, here's an empty jar. So when you take your processed jars out, this little button's still going to be up in the air. And what's going to happen, as the jar starts to cool, it's going to create its own vacuum, and that lid is going to pop down, create its own seal, and when that lid is down, that means you got a good vacuum. So anytime you process items, you know, it could take anywhere from 5 minutes for this to happen to 5 hours, but generally it's pretty quick, within the first 10 minutes I would say. So you want to look for that. You want to make sure all of your canned goods, whether it's stuff you canned up last year or stuff you canned up last night, before you use it, you want to make sure that you got your good vacuum seal, like you see on the jar of lemon curd here I made the other day. You want to make sure you got that good vacuum seal. That tells you that it's sealed up nice and it's not contaminated. Any jars that you might process, you leave them on the counter for 12 hours to cool overnight or whatever, and you still have not gotten that vacuum seal, you take that jar, you stick it in the fridge, and you use it within the next 2 weeks. Some items I believe you can reprocess, but most places will recommend that you just take that jar and go ahead and use it. Not that it's contaminated, it just means that it didn't get its vacuum seal. Maybe that lid itself had a little defect in it. Maybe there was a little warpage in the glass itself, so it didn't quite seal right. So you go ahead and use that right away. but you definitely want to make sure that all of your canned items have a good vacuum seal, that lid is drawn down tight, and you go ahead and pack them away. One other thing I did also want to mention was as you take them out and they cool, it's not unusual for these rings to loosen up a little bit. Now, some people like to take the rings right off altogether. That's fine. But what I usually do when the ring loosens up a little bit is I'll give it just a little quarter turn, just enough so it hits. I do not crank it down at all. Just enough so it hits, and you can leave it there. But again, if you prefer, you can take the ring right off and put them in a little box with all the other rings and lids and jars and stuff, and save them for later use. Alright, so my jars are done processing. Take them out, give them a little shake, get some of that water off. Always put these down on some type of cloth on the counter. You don't want to put a boiling hot jar of any kind of preserve on a cold counter. The bottom of the jar could crack, and yeah, that wouldn't be good. So put them on a cloth, give them a little space around each other so they can cool off quickly. Don't put any water on them, don't put them in cool breeze, don't put them outside snow, don't put them in the fridge, freezer, so on and so forth. Just let them cool on their own overnight. Give them a good 8, 12 hours, 24 hours even. That's fine. And let them cool on their own. And yeah, once they're done cooling, well, as they start to cool, as I said earlier, those tops will pop down after, usually after a few minutes. That means they've sealed themselves. And you can put them away with the rest of your goodies. And that's about it. This stuff is awesome on strawberry shortcake, pancakes. Instead of putting syrup on them, cook your pancakes in some strawberry preserves. This stuff is fantastic. Of course, on toast, I probably go through about 2 jars of preserves a month between putting some on pancakes, on toast, and oftentimes I'll take one of the 8-ounce jars and bring it to work, and I'll just eat the strawberry right out of the jar at one time. I mean, it comes out that good. And that's one of the things I love about that low sugar recipe too. You're really getting all the strawberry, and it's not overpowered with sugar. Anyway, that's a rundown of canning some strawberries. Apples, when I do apples, I basically do the same exact thing, the same kind of recipe, same amount of pectin, sugar, a little bit of lemon. For apples to fill up 4 jars this size, or 8 smaller jars, you're probably looking at about 16 to 20 medium to large size apples. But all the recipes that I use for my preserves, pear preserves, apples, strawberries, so on and so forth, I always go with the low sugar. One other thing for you guys that into the raspberry, I'll take my strawberry recipe like this, and I'll add in 1 cup or a half a pint of raspberries in with it, and it gives the strawberries a nice little bit of a raspberry kick to them. That comes out really good too. So anyways, men, there you go. You know, this is a quick little rundown on what I do anyway. You could just hear those jars sealing themselves a second ago. But there's a lot of great recipes out there on YouTube. Definitely, I know you subscribe to Bailey Sane Ranch. She does some awesome stuff over there. So poke around on YouTube and you'll find some other great recipes. Alright guys, anyway, I'm out of here. So, yeah, get out of here, you kids.